The latest webinar that I did converted 13 in the first hour.
Amazing.
Which is the highest revenue day that we've ever had as a business. It's like over $20,000 since starting the first webinar.
Almost 10x.
Like, people want to buy into people. I had a good career, but I didn't have that drive in me. I really felt I understood baby sleep literally within 3 months. I can see that the $3,000 I spent has translated to $20,000. I really want to grow my business. I know I have a scalable business.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. What a dream. What a dream come true. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited. Wait, do you have a funny story about this?
Okay, I need to tell you this story before we start. So, like, at the start of last year, I had fully kind of decided that I was ready to grow my business, ready to scale, had a great team in place, like the business had been growing like year on year. And, but I also, alongside that, I had this kind of tricky family situation going on that I could just feel was just zapping my energy. And I had the opportunity to have this rapid transformational therapy, hypnotherapy session. And in it, she, like, the whole purpose of it was really so that I could learn to compartmentalize like what was going on with my family, because it was a situation that I couldn't resolve. It was going to be ongoing, and really like dial in my energy and be able to focus my energy on growing the business. So in it, she really got me to like be super specific about what success looks like. What does growing your business look like revenue, team, like reach, like what does that look like for you? And so I was, part of what I asked, or part of what I was saying I wanted to be a guest on podcasts. And she was like, be specific. And so I was like, I want to be a guest on the BossBabe podcast. And after the session, they give you this recording that you listen to for 3 weeks, and you're supposed to listen to it before bed. And so it's like really like rewiring your brain and going in more and more. And I listened to it religiously for 3 weeks. And in that recording, it says, you are going to be invited on the BossBabe podcast.
This gives me chills. Do you have it?
And that was 13 months ago. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my goodness, I need to hear this.
Let me play it.
Okay.
You can see yourself as a really successful CEO. You can see yourself being invited to podcasts, to BossBabe. You can see yourself.
That is wild. Well, not wild, because we all know the woo-woo works, but I feel like when it works, you're like, holy crap, it actually works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when on the course, when you said, I think at the start of the Freedom Fast Track course, you said like somebody on the course is going to get the opportunity to come on the podcast. And when I heard it, I was like, that is mine. That is mine.
Oh my goodness.
But you might not know this, like pretty much after that hypnotherapy session, I'm about shooting my shot, right? I would shoot my shot. So I pitched the BossBabe podcast like a year ago.
Wow.
I wrote an email and I was like, here's how I can bring value to your audience. Never heard back. No shade. But like, it just goes to show, you know, like, just because one way fails, like, who could have imagined like a year later, like, I'm getting invited on a podcast.
I love that. And same, like, whenever I like have a goal to be on a certain podcast or whatever, if I don't get on the first time, I'm like, okay, well, I'm still getting on. Like, it's gonna happen somehow. When I just like when you have that belief, I feel like that belief draws it to you, like you get on that frequency. But also I think you then take the steps, you know, you need to take, like, it's both the woo-woo and then also the practical.
Action, right? And
marrying that together is, I love this. Oh my goodness. Well, I am honored to have you here. And the fact that we get to do this in person. This is the second time I've seen you now in less than a week.
I know.
I'm here for it.
So good.
I'm here for it. How are you feeling after Friday?
So I came away from our VIP day on Friday, like, just brimming with ideas. And I'm an action girl, so I'm already like putting things into place already, and already like even seeing results.
Oh my God. So excited.
Yeah.
When you texted me that day being like, my brain is mush, I'm like, yep, that's what happens. But I feel like when you wake up the next day, whenever you've had like an intense kind of strategy day, brain on day, you wake up the next day and your brain's integrated everything. It's like, okay, now I'm ready to go.
Yeah, totally. And like that's when actually having a child is like, it forces you to slow down, because your natural instinct, or my natural instinct, is like, I just want to put my head down and do all of it right now. But the reality is, like, I have to do it in the time that I've got. And so the next morning I woke up like super early before my son. And I just started like, in that 1 hour that I had before he woke up, I started doing stuff already.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Well, I'm so excited to tell your story to everyone listening, because I know they're going to leave feeling so inspired. So before we get into what your business currently is, can you take me back to like your early career? What did your early career look like?
Yeah, so after I finished university in Leeds, I had this desire to live somewhere in the sun, work in the sun somewhere. So I started my career in Dubai. I worked in marketing and PR there, started in PR and then went into marketing. And I did the marketing for high-end restaurants and bars, like luxury restaurants and bars. So like the Ivy, for example, I launched that in the Middle East. And then just kind of like naturally niched into that sector. So I spent the rest, like the next 10, 11 years working in marketing for restaurants and bars, first in Dubai and then back in the UK, in Manchester, in London. And then London was where I finished working for a company and went freelance working for myself. And that was when I got pregnant with my son. So I was freelance for the year before I had my son, and then started my business. So I'd already got that kind of like urge to have to work for myself. And honestly, looking back, I could never stick it out at any company. Like after a year or 18 months, 2 years, I was always itchy to leave. Whether it was the company, whether it was like the lack of opportunity for growth, whether it was my boss, I was, there was always something that, like, looking back, I'm like, you were the thing. It was you.
You were the problem.
Like, genuinely. I guess I needed to get all of that experience that I got from throughout my career in order to give me that confidence that I could start a business like I have now. But yeah, I think looking back, I was always designed to be an entrepreneur.
And so going back to graduating from uni and going to work in Dubai, for anyone that maybe is in that stage of their life and they're listening thinking, well, how do you just get a job in Dubai? Like, is it you go and look on job sites and you just find a job in Dubai? Like, what was that process like?
Okay, so I was living in Leeds in a student house, no money. I was working immediately after I graduated, I was working as a receptionist in the gym. And I had just got it in my head that I was going to live and work in Dubai. I went out there on holiday in my final year with one of my best friends, and her father lives there. So he really showed us like the expat kind of lifestyle there. We both kind of fell in love with it. And then my friend and I were going to go together. She got a boyfriend. She was like, I'm sorry, I'm out. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go on my own anyway. Had no money to fly out, had really like no money to like house myself. I sent my CV and approached about 50 companies, and one of them wrote back and said yes, and that they would fly me out and house me. And that was the first company I worked for.
And how was the visa process? Easy?
So as long as you're working for a company, like they will sort out your visa. I think now, I mean, that was like 20 years, no, 15 years ago now.
Wow.
So Dubai has changed so much in that time, and it's much more open to freelancers and like digital nomads now than it was. Back then it was very much like you work for a company. But yeah, I just blanket sent my CV out, and I just didn't care about the rejection. I was just like, oh well, you know, just like that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be there, and it was such a good thing. It was such a fun place to live and work in my 20s.
Yeah, when I think back to like my own kind of career path, I am so grateful that I left the UK, not because I don't like the UK, I love it, but I'm so grateful that I left and experienced working in different countries, because when you are that far away from anything that you're so used to, forces you to be so resourceful. It forces you to push yourself out your comfort zone. And I think that kind of experience is so invaluable. So for anyone that is listening who is in the earlier stages of their career, if that opportunity feels exciting to you, I just think go for it. Like, you cannot replace that with anything else. Getting that far away from home, getting the chance to really be independent and to take opportunities to meet people that you would never normally meet, I think is a game changer. And I'm going to guess really sent you on such an amazing path in your career. It sounds like you got to, I mean, launching the Ivy and in Dubai, that's such a huge opportunity that probably as a graduate you wouldn't have gotten here.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think I had a choice after university that really it was, I studied PR at university, and the majority of my classmates, it was either go to London and start your career there, or, you know, for me, I was like, well, I'm 10 a penny in London. But in Dubai, there was hardly any graduates there. There was much more people kind of mid-20s and older. So I was more of a novelty there.
Yeah, totally. Love this. Okay, so then fast forwarding a bit to you going freelance. What was that process like? Did you already have a bunch of clients lined up, or was this you taking this huge risk and thinking, oh God, people could choose not to work with me, I might have no paycheck? Like, what did it look like?
It was definitely a risk.
Okay.
Because I didn't have clients lined up. My husband and I had big conversations about it. I remember one was like with a couples counselor present, because my husband David, he works as a pilot, so in terms of risk, like they're taught to be completely like risk averse. So any kind of risk is, you know, harder for him to compute than for me. I'm much more of an optimist, like jump and, you know, the bridge will appear. So I was confident that I would be able to find clients. Like I had really good names on my CV at that point. And I felt confident that I would, like, I felt confident that the work would come, and it did. But I really had to win him over to say, look, like we can do this. Like you've got to give me your trust, and I will deliver and not leave you like high and dry to pay for everything. But yeah, I mean, thank God I had that like safety net in him as well to be able to do things like that.
And what did that look like? So you were doing that for a year, and then you had your son, is that right? Or you got pregnant with your son?
So I was working in London before that, and I was we had started trying to get pregnant, and I mean, all in all, it was 6 months, but I was so ready, you know, for a good year before that. So every month feels like eternity when you've been ready for so long. Like I needed to give my husband a bit of time, because he was like, I'm not quite there yet. And I was like, okay, I'll give you a year and then we can, you know, get on with it. But it wasn't happening when I was working in London. Like I was in quite a stressful job. I wasn't that happy in my job that I was in, and, you know, really rushing about from pillar to post. A lot of anxiety as well in that role. And as soon as I went freelance, like the month afterwards, I fell pregnant, and I was just like, look, this is like my body has relaxed, my brain has relaxed into this, and I really think that like allowed me to get pregnant.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. There's definitely something to your body feeling actually safe to get pregnant. Was that stressful though? Because I mean, I don't fully know how maternity leave works in the UK. In the US, it honestly feels like it's non-existent, but that's a whole different podcast. But was there a difference in the maternity leave you would get from working with a company versus working for yourself? And was that stressful?
Yes, okay. There is a big difference. And the maternity allowance, it's called, when you are self-employed is terrible.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So
I mean, at least you get one.
Probably akin to the States. Yeah.
I don't know if you even get that in America.
Like nothing.
I don't think so. Not if you work for yourself. Could be wrong, but I don't know that you do.
Yeah. So I guess better than nothing, right? We had savings. My husband was working and had money coming in, so financially we could do it. However, my son was born March 2020, right at the start of lockdown, and my clients were in the hospitality industry, which basically shut down. So pretty soon after I had my son, I realized like there really isn't any work to go back to when the restaurants and bars are closed. I tried a few different avenues and there was really nothing at that time. So in a way, looking back, it was like the stars aligned for me to try something new with really like less risk because I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah. So tell me about that, because the idea for the business that you have now, that started way before your son was born, right? It started when you were pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about that.
So taking you right back to like winter 2019, which was when I was like heavily pregnant, and having lots of late night conversations with my husband about what we were feeling about having a baby, like what we were scared about, what we were excited about. Like we had a beautiful life before we had my son. Not that we don't now, but we had like a super like chilled, serene, like no stress,
well rested,
right? Like everything's kind of like ticking along nicely. And I don't know whether you can relate, but we were both a little bit like, are we crazy for throwing a grenade into this like beautiful life that we've created for ourselves? And when we were talking and having these conversations, like the thing that kept coming up was the sleep deprivation and like feeling like, are we just going to be sleep deprived for months and years on end? Like as I said, my husband works as a pilot and it's not an option for him to go to work tired because it's so dangerous. So there's certain jobs that you can go to work a bit tired and maybe muddle through, and there's some that you just can't. So I remember having conversations with him where he would be like, okay, if it is bad, if the sleep is really bad, like I'll have to sleep in the spare room whenever I have work. And I'm needy. I was like, no, stay close. So I kind of got it into my head that there would be a way of making sleep good. Like there would be a way of doing things right from the beginning, like right, quote unquote, because there's no right way, but there would be a way that I could do things from the beginning that would help my son to be a really, really good sleeper. And so I just set about on this like a little bit of a nutty professor mad mission when I was pregnant, and started reading, started listening to podcasts. I had like color post-its stuck in all these books. Like I really did like go on this mad mission. And I remember saying to David, like, do you want to read this book? Do you want to listen? And him being like, you're good. Like, I trust you though. Good luck. And yeah, so I put together this like plan on Excel, and after my son was born, I was like, are you happy, to just go with what I've created? And David was like, yes. And we just started putting this kind of gentle routine in place from 4 weeks old, which for some is like super, super early. For us, we're routine people. We like that structure. So it just worked for us. And just gradually his sleep started to get better and better and much more predictable and consistent. He was doing long naps. We were getting our evenings back. From sort of 2.5 months, he was doing 8 hours through the night consistently. So really 2 months in, we were getting 8 hours sleep every night. And then from 4.5 months, started sleeping 12 hours through the night. And that was it. After that, it was every night he was sleeping through the night. There wasn't like regression. It really, really was consistent. And I just realized, like, I understand this. I really, really felt I understood baby sleep, and the mums around me, I could feel that it was something that was feeling overwhelming, and it was something that was like really flummoxing people. And the other interesting thing I noticed was that when I would try to give even friends some advice, it was like there was this wall up of, that's nice for your baby, mine is different. And I was like, this is interesting, because even like my friends that trust me don't feel like they can take advice on this unless it's from a professional. So kind of my ears pricked up a little bit in terms of, okay, there's a business here, because it's something I can do. If I need to get a qualification that makes people feel like they're in safe hands, let's do it. I have the time. So I did a qualification during my son's nap times, after bedtime. And then I remember I was going to like one baby, mum and baby mum and baby class at the time. And one of the mums in there, Katie, she shared with me after the class, she's like, I'm just about to start working with a sleep consultant, like things are really tough. And I was like, can you just give me one more week and then I'll have qualified and you can be my first like tester client. I did it for her for like, I think £30 for a consultation and 2 weeks of me supporting them every day. And I was like, if I'm bad, just give me feedback. If I'm good, give me a Google review. And it went well, and she passed me on to her friend. So I worked with her, it got better. And then a mum down the street, I worked with her as my kind of third tester client, and it worked again and quicker. And after that third client, I was like, I'm ready. And I pushed my website live, and the business just really flew from the start. Like, it was, now looking back, I think a really good time for a business like mine to start. Obviously you have to have some, like, you have to be good at your job as well. But I think people were at home, they were depressed, the weather was rubbish, like they had a bit more money as well because they weren't going on holiday, they weren't going out. So I think it was a perfect opportunity for my business, like the momentum to start behind a new business like mine.
Oh, so many things that you've said there that I love. I mean, the first thing is, I mean, being in PR for restaurants and bars, like one of the worst jobs you could be in for COVID, right? But to take that and turn it into a business that actually is probably one of the best businesses you could be starting during COVID. I mean, that is such an example of not just letting the economy or external circumstances dictate what your reality is going to be. And I just want to highlight that because I know, you know, things are hard right now. You know, no matter which country you live in, there's shit going on everywhere. It feels like the economy's up and down. There's a lot going on. And hearing that, I think, is just very empowering to hear, actually, you know what, I can change what my circumstance is, and there is a way through this. So I love that. Secondly, also love that you are talking about this. I remember, and we'll not talk about this too long because I know there's not tons listening that this is relevant for, but I do want to share it for anyone that is. I remember I didn't do any of the baby reading before Noemi was born, like none, which is so interesting because I'm such a reader, and I was so focused on my business and like thinking, okay, because I was leaving to take some time off on mat leave. I'd never taken time off, and I think I was just so conscious of what would happen to the business that I give that all my energy. Stephen and I maybe did like 1 hour of a newborn class at the hospital asked us to do, and that was almost it. And then, brought Noemi home. We're like, what the heck are we doing? And I had no idea that even babies could go on schedules. Like, when I say I knew nothing, like I truly knew nothing. I didn't know anything.
That surprises me so much.
Yeah, I didn't know a thing about a thing. Like, I was so just in like, let's see how it goes. Like, I just didn't think about it. And so those first I had a pretty rough C-section. So those first few weeks, I feel I didn't really move off the sofa, and I just had Noemi on my chest the whole time. But then when I was getting to about the 6-week mark, I noticed I was struggling. And because I couldn't, and I don't know if all babies are like this. I only have one baby, so I cannot say, but she would fall asleep on me for all of her naps. And anytime I put her down, she would cry. She would wake up instantly and she would cry. So she'd be on me constantly. And even when she was awake, I couldn't put her down because she'd cry. And so getting in the shower was impossible. I didn't have any support. Stephen was back to work, so it was just me and Noemi. And it would be like 2 p.m. and I'd finally be able to put her down very gently in her little travel crib in the bathroom, hop in for the quickest shower, hop out. And at one point I just thought there has to be a different way, because I am literally just, I'm spending my all day, every day holding my baby, which is beautiful. And I still need to shower, wash my hair, make lunch. Like Stephen would come down being like, have you eaten yet? Nope, she didn't let me. So, and I found wearing the baby carrier still really challenging. So my recovery was really tough. And I remember reading this one book on schedules, and it changed my entire life. And it was just mind blowing how, you know, just learning about this stuff, there is actually a different way, and there was a different way to do it. So I love that I wish I'd done that research beforehand, but I love that you recognized it. And what I love about what you do is, you know, I feel like I did go down a bit of a rabbit hole, because once I'm in a rabbit hole, I'm in. And I didn't really know it was a thing to get like a consultant on a call to be like, how do I do this? I love that you went down the rabbit hole of consuming all the content, so that a mum could call you and probably within an hour you can tell her what to do, and she's already strapped for time. She doesn't need to go look at all the books. I just feel like the problem you're solving is so necessary, and I love the way that you're doing it as well. Like a lot of women don't, and I'm saying women, I should say parents, but we all know mothers take on majority of the load, so that's another conversation. But okay, let's say parents, let's say the right way. A lot of parents don't want to sit and do a lot of like in-depth courses. They kind of want to get on a call and say, well, my baby does this, my baby does that, how can I get that info? So I love that. I think it's such a perfect problem solve. Another thing I want to go into is when you said that you launched your website and kind of your business just started flying right away. Tell me about that. Tell me who you got it in front of and how that happened. Because I know for some people, they think they just press publish on their website and all of a sudden the sales come flying in and they're like, wait, no one's coming in. So how did you get that working for you?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. Firstly, on the mum/parents thing, definitely the majority of my followers and client base is the mamas, but we insist on the other partner being on the call, because actually quite often the other partner can be super, super useful in sleep training, particularly if mum is feeling particularly anxious around sleep. Sometimes dad is kind of flatlining through life. You know how it is.
Yep.
So
can relate.
Actually, that can be so helpful around sleep, because they're just more chilled with it. And if you're feeling anxious, your baby picks up on that. So just one thing on the mum/dad conversation. But yeah, so obviously with my background in marketing, I had an advantage with starting my business, because I knew how to launch a restaurant. I knew how to do the marketing for a bar, you know, a really high-end, lovely restaurant and bar. I could apply the same to myself. So, for example, you know, in the weeks that I was about to publish my website, I had a full photo shoot done. You know, things like that maybe you wouldn't consider if you're a sleep consultant, that you might just get a stock image of a baby and put that on your website. I knew the power of having, you know, great photography. Like I really spent time thinking about what I wanted to look like in the photos. You know, I'm not going to be in a blazer and suited and booted when my ideal client is not in that space. So, you know, I really thought about outfits that were casual but still looked polished, so that they're kind of going to trust me, not feel intimidated by me, but also like she looks like she's got her shit together, like, because I did. And so I wanted that to come across as well.
Can I put a pin in this?
Yeah.
1 second, just highlight, because obviously I got a chance to review your funnel in depth in FFT. One picture in particular that you did, it's in your it's in your webinar, And I think it's when you're talking about the sleep consult and it's a picture of you, which looks like you're on Zoom and you're holding a cup of tea or coffee, hair's up, and you're in this really nice sweater. It's like a beige sweater. Okay, cool. My memory's serving well. I just want to put a pin in what you said and highlight it because that image is so freaking powerful. And it just demonstrated to me, I mean, the whole way through I kept saying to you, you clearly know your client, you clearly know your client. But that image to me demonstrated you really know your client, because my guess is the people that are joining these Zoom calls with you are so sleep deprived. They don't want to think about dressing up for a fancy Zoom call. And the way you positioned it was, let's have a cuppa, let's have a chat. Like that is, so when you're saying you understand the power of photography, it's those details. And I just want people listening to really hear that when you're thinking about launching something or putting something together, that level of detail that you went into, like, was that intentional? Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, just from doing marketing for restaurants and bars, you know, we would do photo shoots for the restaurant, for the food, for the chefs, 3-4 times a year, and pay for big shoots. So I knew that in order to have content as well, I was about to launch my Instagram. So what am I going to put on there? Just Canva carousel after carousel? No, like people want to buy into people. I knew that they want to look into your eyes and say, are you my kind of person? Like, do you look like my kind of vibe? And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't spend a lot. I got my friend with an iPhone and a really good eye to do the photography, and she nailed it. And you know, to this day, like most of my photography is done on an iPhone. So you don't have to have a ton of budget, but I knew that I wanted to have like a bank of images that I can, you know, put on my, at the time it was much more images on Instagram than it is Reels now. But I knew I needed that bank of photography that's going to work like across the website, on Instagram, that I can put in a newsletter. So that's where my background in marketing really helped. The other thing that I did from the get-go was paid ads. I did Google advertising from the start. I didn't do Instagram or Facebook for quite some time because I was just growing my my organic following there. But I had like good success with Google ads in the past, so I used that from the beginning. It really delivered for a time, and then it gets expensive after a while. So it's not something that I still use now, but it really got my business going at the start. And word of mouth.
Yeah.
You know, I got every client as much as I could to do a Google ad, and really, you know, that helps when you're not a Google ad, a Google review. So I was advertising on Google, but also having those reviews popping up.
It's so good. So good. So how long have you been in business for?
So this is like coming into my 4th year.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And so talk to me about the progression. So you launched your website. That was kind of the beginning of it. You started with some Google ads. You were getting these reviews. How has it progressed over these 4 years?
Yeah. So I think within a year. So firstly, when I started, I was like, I'm going to do 2 days a week. I was saying to David, don't put pressure on me to go back to work. Like, I just want to do 2 days and see how it goes. And then as soon as I started, I was like, can I do 3 days? and then I was like, I think I want to do 4 days. And then I was like, I'm just going to do 4.5. And I've stayed there. But I loved it. You know, before I had my son, I had a good career, but I didn't have that drive in me. It was like I needed to, like, it's like I had a baby taken out of me, and this like fire put in my belly for my business. Like it, you know, it just lit me up in a different way. But yeah, so within a year I had like more business than I could handle alone. So I hired my first team member, and then a year later expanded the team. A year later I added a PA. So that's pretty much where we are now. I have 2 sleep consultants who do the majority of the consultations. I have a VA who helps me, and someone helps me a bit with social media. And my role really is to focus on growing the business. So I'm working with Instagram influencers. I'm doing content. I'm doing my email newsletter. And I've recently launched a podcast. So that's kind of where my role is sitting now, rather than doing all the consultations. And that has allowed the business to grow by nearly 80% in the last year.
It's amazing, yeah. And even looking at your numbers, I got the chance to do a deep dive on Friday. I mean, just seeing your progressive growth it's phenomenal to see what you've built, and such a predictable, scalable business, which is so nice to see, especially launching out of COVID, because I've seen also a lot of businesses launch in that time frame where it has been a perfect time to launch a business, and they had this huge explosion, but then the business just declining and declining. Whereas for you, you've really gone from strength to strength to strength, which says a lot about the foundations that you've built in the business. I do want to talk about that too, because I just think it's so inspiring for a lot of business owners listening who maybe haven't hit that predictability yet. So I'm curious. So you went up to about 4.5 days. And was that including doing sleep consults in the beginning?
Yeah.
Now you're not doing the sleep consults, but you're still doing the 4.5 days.
I mean, it varies from day to day depending on,
Okay.
workout,
doing all the things,
a manicure, all the life admin as well.
Right.
But yeah, I tend to like not do much on Fridays. It works with my business because they don't seem to want to do much on a Friday either, my client base. But yeah, so Monday to Thursday are my main working days.
I like highlighting that because definitely you've created a lot more freedom for yourself by being able to delegate out. And at the same time, it's not like you just completely stepped away from the business and the business is running itself. And I always think that's an important thing to highlight, because with this business, I feel like you either could have gone a couple of different paths. You could have stayed being the one doing the sleep consults, and you could have brought in people to do your social, your newsletter, your marketing, all of that stuff. Or you go the other way where you bring in someone to do your consults and you actually go and do the other stuff. And I think that's the case with a lot of business. Yes, you're having more freedom this way, but it's that intentional decision making that I think is really important for business owners, because when you're running a business, it's going to require you no matter what kind of role you do, but it's where you want to spend your time. And did you think about that intentionally? Like, okay, where do I want to spend my time in this business?
Yes, definitely. I knew from the start that I wanted to have passive income alongside the consultation. So pretty early on, I created my sleep program kind of library, which are like downloadable guides, really the low ticket option for people that didn't necessarily need to have a one-to-one consultation, that they can just buy something off the shelf and go away and read and implement independently. So yeah, I created those really, really early on. I knew I wanted to have a business where I could go on holiday, or I could go to the gym and still be making sales, or, wake up in the morning and still have sales coming in. And when I was doing the consultations all myself, I really did like pause to look at what do I like and what don't I like. The thing that I found drained me the most was being on WhatsApp every day with clients. Even though that part is so valuable for the family, a lot of the parents that work with us opt for that support, because the first few days of sleep training can be really tough, and having somebody to cheerlead you through and to help you tweak things as you go along is so valuable. But for me, on the other end of that, I felt my energy drain from it.
Right.
So I knew I wanted to eventually outsource that. And I also, I worked with a coach, and we had a session where I said to her, look, I really want to grow my business. I know I have a scalable business, but I can't work out how to get from here to there. And she was really blunt. She was like, you need to stop doing consultations. And at the time I was like, but they want me. They want me. What will they do if they can't have me? And she was like, they don't care. They just want to have the results. And honestly, it was like so true. It was such good advice, because as soon as I came off doing consultations, the only people that cared were the people that had worked with me previously, that were coming back with their second babies, and they just wanted that continuity. Otherwise, they were really happy to work with my team because it's the same method. You know, I've 100% trained my team in my method. So that's what they're looking for. So that was super solid advice and just allowed me to step into the CEO role more. But I think, like, in answer to your question, what I know I want from my business and what makes me the happiest is a varied week. I don't want to be doing the same thing every day. And that was when I was doing the consultations, it was too samey. For me, I like it when I'm doing, you know, one day I'm doing content, the next day I'm doing a podcast, the next day I'm working with an influencer. I really like that variety in the week, and not having, you know, always set appointments every day. Like, I feel like that's what lights me up and gives me that feeling of freedom.
Oh my God, there's so much gold in this. I love that advice of they don't care if it's you.
Yeah.
Because that's why I was highlighting, you know, you could have done the consults yourself and outsourced the other stuff, or you could have done it the other way around. And I think it's important to highlight that because we almost always have the choice. And I know there's probably a lot of coaches and consultants, service providers listening to this podcast thinking, I can't step away from that part of my business. And, you know, they might be doing all the coaching, but also the social media, the email, the funnel, all of that. And they cannot seem to figure that out. And it's really a choice. You know, you can train people up in your methods and have someone else deliver. There's always a way of making it work for you. And I just think that's really, really worth highlighting, because building a business that you love is going to be something that's very intentional. And I think at every point you have to check in with yourself of, what is it that I want to keep doing? What is it that's going to energize me and fuel me? Because, you know, 4 years is a long time to be in business. And if you were constantly doing the shit that you hated, like, maybe you would have given up by now. Yeah. And so I think it's just so important to highlight that.
I think that you can feel when you're on the right path when you're not burning out every few months. Mm-hmm. And I think when I was doing all of the things, and including the things that were draining me and that weren't lighting me up, that was when I would be burnt out every few months and like, oh, this business. Whereas now, like, I don't really get that anymore. But yeah, I think from the start, I knew that me doing all of the consultations, even though, like, not to blow my own trumpet, but I can do it like so well. Like I know, you know, I can help any family. And I still get to work with some families and working with influencers as well, which I still get to like dip in. But I knew that also, I suppose as well, like, it's the advantage that I have maybe over some of my competitors is that I have that background in marketing. You know, why outsource that when that's my expertise?
I love this so much. And especially on the burnout piece, because I feel like burnout isn't because you're working too much. Burnout is often because you're not doing enough of what actually energizes you. And so you're constantly depleting the tank and it's not being filled up again. And I think when you are doing the stuff in your business that actually gives you energy and energizes you, you have that fuel. But like driving a car on an empty tank, at some point it's going to, you know, break down if you don't fill it up again. So that's the way I always think about burnout. Like, I can clear my calendar, but if I'm still working day to day on the stuff that I really dislike, I'm going to feel burned out. I love that we're talking about this. So what you decided to join FFT was March. You joined in March. What did you decide what was the reason you wanted to join it, and where was your business at that point?
So my business was growing year on year, and yeah, from last year to this year, a really good growth. You know, every year hasn't been like that kind of level of growth. We definitely had a really slow, like 2022, I think was a slow year for us, but still zooming out, you know, the business was growing year on year. But from month to month, it was a roller coaster, and I was just like tired of not having predictability in my business. You know, like, I think from your side, you were like, you've got such a predictable, scalable business, which is so nice to hear. But from month to month, it would be like 1 month's great. And then the next month I'm paying my team, but I can't pay myself. And I had a couple of months like that. I'd have great months, and then I'd have like, whoa, what's happening? Like I couldn't, and then you're in my head, I was like, is it the economy? Is it this? Is it that? And you're playing that kind of game. And so I think what really spoke to me when you started talking about the Freedom Fast Track course was the predictability piece, and having the machine underneath my business. That would mean, like when you were talking about pulling levers, like, oh, once you've got this sorted, then you can pull that lever. I'm like, pull levers? Like, come again? Like, I need this. I need this. Again. Yeah, because also I'm like, why would you not have the lever cranked the whole time? But yeah, so that was like what really spoke to me. I was like, I want that machine that is going to reduce the up and downness from month to month of my business and make me feel like, more secure with what I had.
That makes sense. So I know what you mean. Like when I'm looking at it saying it's predictable, probably for someone looking at it on paper, it might be, but then not understanding for you as a business owner, probably the last week of the month, you're scrambling to bring in those sales to make money and things like that.
Yeah. And like, for example, David would say to me, do you know how much you're going to pay yourself this month? And it would be the week before the end of the month. And I would be like, no idea.
Right.
No idea. And that feels stressful, even for me as like somebody that's riskier. But for him, it's like super stressful. So yeah, I was really feeling fed up that even though I've got this business which is clearly working, and I always zoom out, I can see the numbers are all like going in the right direction, I really wanted to have that predictability from month to month. That was the big draw for me.
Yeah, and I love that you're talking about it too and just normalizing how that can be the case in so many businesses where you are scrambling every month to hit the goal, to pay people out, to pay yourself. And like I talk a lot about the nervous system, and that is so hard on the nervous system because it constantly feels like your security is jeopardized. And when you feel like that, I mean, we started the podcast off talking about woo-woo stuff and like retraining your brain, but when you feel like that and your nervous system is like in shambles, it's very hard to like attract, and be in a great vibration and all the woo-woo things like that. That's foundational work. So like I love pairing the woo-woo with actually the practical. Like, okay, let's get a funnel. Let's get this. Like we can do both. So I love that you're talking about it and normalizing it because I also know most entrepreneurs listening to this podcast are probably nodding along being like, yeah, that was me. Oh, that is me. That's exactly where I'm at. And I just want to normalize how common that is and also how freaking hard it is. That can, even if you're bringing in money every month and you're hitting your numbers at the end of the month, maybe you had to just scramble like crazy. Even hitting your numbers sometimes can make you just want to leave your business because you're like, I don't know how much longer I can stay on this hamster wheel. So I'm very grateful that you're willing to share that. So then joining FFT, your goal was like building a sales engine in there.
Yeah, I had before I started the course, I already had a funnel running in my business.
Okay.
It wasn't delivering like I wanted it to. And it was also a funnel which sold my low ticket item in the business, my sleep programs. So I really wanted to build a funnel specifically to push my consultations, to sell my consultations, and so that my team were, as busy as they wanted to be all the time as well.
And what kind of insights or breakthroughs did you have during FFT that supported your business?
So I was like a sponge in that course. I was like, Natalie has done the work. I'm going to pay attention. And I'm an action taker. So really after each class, I'm taking furious notes, and then I'm going away and doing it. I understood automations. Like I had some of the tech already in place, but I needed support with that as well. So I got the help of a little tech wizard to really help me with the advanced side of the setting up funnels, because I knew I could muddle through that, but I also knew I wanted to keep the pace of this course and have something really great at the end of it. And also I was realistic, you know, I'm like, I'm building essentially an ATM if this works. So do I think I can do everything myself? No. I think I'll just get some support with the harder bits. So for example, I wasn't using ActiveCampaign before. I'd never used Webinar Jam. So these like softwares that I was unfamiliar with, that was where I got support to really get set up on those platforms quickly. And so, you know, after each session, I would do so much work on the work that we were being given. And then alongside that, I would have my freelance tech guy being like, you need to do this, and this. And so I have my homework from both sides. And for a good, I would say like 3-4 weeks, I got up an hour earlier and worked on it while everybody else was asleep every day, so that I could finish the funnel when the deadline was due.
Oh, I just want to highlight that because I also know what you're saying is true. Like on every single call, paying attention, asking questions, like implementing submissions. And I think this is the case for any course that you take. If you're really serious about it, you have to put the work in. You have to be willing to show up. And I just love the level of dedication that you brought to it, because seeing you come in, I mean, I know we chatted a lot in the DMs even before you joined Fast Track, so I kind of had an idea of how you worked. But I think it was like after the second or third call, because we always debrief with my team afterwards, like we just knew your results were going to be phenomenal. And you know, even when people are filling their onboarding forms, you can tell by the level of detail that they give us and the level of way that they're thinking about their commitment level to the program. It's like, yeah, I believe in what I'm teaching. I really, really do. And at the same time, I have to give credit to anyone that's taking it. It's on them to turn this into massive success or not. Like that's really dependent on them. And the way you just showed up was so inspiring for other people, I think, in the program too, because you really were like, I'm going to get my money's worth from this. Like I am going to get my ROI. And I just want to highlight that and say, that's the way to take a course. That's the way to do it, is to really, really show up and be committed to it. And yeah, I mean, as mums, we probably do need to get up an hour earlier. But you know,
it's the only way right now.
Totally. But for a couple of months, it's doable.
Exactly.
You're like, and you know, the calls were a little on the late side for you as well, being in the UK. But for a couple of months, it's like, okay, it's doable. I can make it work. So coming out of the other side of it, what has it looked like for your business? Like, have you seen things shift?
Yeah. So when did we finish up? About May, I think.
May.
Yeah. So what I created, the funnel that I created was a webinar funnel. So I would be doing a webinar, and then my audience would get a series of emails afterwards, giving them an offer and pushing them to buy our consultation. So before I did the course, I didn't have anything set up. So I didn't have the webinar content, I didn't have the slides, I didn't have the software, and I didn't have the 15 or so emails that needed to be written to go to my attendees before and after the webinar. So there was a ton of work there to be done. But yeah, once that was done, I did my first 2 webinars back to back in May. So I did them like one day and then one the following day. And then since then I've done 2 other webinars, one in June and one in July. And I was super, super good at getting people to the initial webinars. I really leaned on all of the influencers that I have worked with in the past and that I've helped with their babies. And I was like, can you put this on your Instagram and spread the word? And so I had a ton of people show up to my first webinar, which now I'm like, why did you do that when you were so crap? So yeah, I wasn't like, now I'm like getting better and I'm getting more confident. And so I'm now like you live and learn, right? So a lot of people came to watch me not stumble through, but not be as polished as I am now.
Listen, you converted.
Yeah. So speaking of numbers, so I had like 450 show up to my first webinar. And in the first hour afterwards, I got 2 sales, which if we do the maths on the conversion rate, it's pretty bad.
It's workable.
I'm not, just to like be completely transparent, like I felt a bit deflated after that,
Totally.
after that webinar, because me being me, I'm like, okay, so the industry average is 10%. Let's go nail that 10%. She says with a 0.5%
Well, the
conversion rate.
industry average isn't 10%, but what I want you to get is 10%.
Okay, so 10% is good. Yeah.
10%'s great. Because
Right.
we're not just trying to graduate some average Joe.
Yeah.
So when we say 10%, that's because I know you can get there.
Yes.
So that's the benchmark that we want. But it doesn't mean like that's industry average.
So I think I had just internalized that as you should get 10%
Well,
right off the bat. I'd spent that money already in my head. But yeah, so I had like 450 on like day one, converted to the next day I had like 220, let's say, converted to. So I was like, okay, I'm still converting way less than I want, but ratio wise, I'm getting better. But it's, it's so funny because like the natural instinct when you do something and you're not great at it is like, okay, tried that, wasn't great at it, put it to bed. Don't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put yourself out there again. And I got some like just like shady comments in the chat, like not it was basically like, oh, she's just selling, like that kind of a comment as well. So that I wasn't expecting. And so afterwards as well, I was like, didn't get the sales I wanted and people didn't like it that much. So I had a bit of that going on afterwards. But the thing with the webinar is like the only way to get better at it is to keep doing it. Like that is the only way. And so you just have to like push yourself to do it again. And so I did it again in June, tweaked the offer, tweaked a little bit of the content, and I was just naturally getting better at it. So the one in June, I converted 7 in the first hour. So I was like, okay, we are getting somewhere. We can see progress here from month to month. And then the next one I did, I made a couple of small tweaks again, tweaked the downsell offer, which hadn't really sold anything, even though I thought it was just a stellar offer. Like my audience did not agree. And so, yeah, the latest webinar that I did converted 13 in the first hour.
Amazing.
And that was a £5,000 day, so $6,500, which is the highest revenue day that we've ever had as a business. And so, yeah, and these are just sales in the first hour. There's off the back of, over the next few days after each webinar, there's sales coming through, bookings coming through. But this is like specifically from the offer that we give at the end of the webinar. But yeah, all in, it's like over $20,000 since starting the first webinar in revenue, specifically from doing the webinars. So yeah,
almost 10x investment, right?
Yeah.
And when you were talking about going back and tweaking, do you feel like FFT helped you to identify what to tweak, what to look for?
Yeah, I mean, if there's an offer which isn't working and there's no sales coming through, or there's really limited sales, it could be your delivery, but it could be also that it's just not compelling enough for them to move quickly. And so I'm also like a bit of a fuck it, let's try.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just try something else and see, because ultimately if I get the volume, even if it's less than I wanted to sell it at, it's going to be worthwhile. The downsell offer, for example, like last month or in June, I thought I had nailed it. I was like, great, £99, they're getting a steal. No one bought it, or like 2 people bought it. I was like, all right, drop it £20. 8 people bought it. So it's like, fine, there's definitely an element of like experimenting and seeing. The other thing that I did was I watched back the recording and really paid attention to what people were asking in the chat,
mm-hmm.
the questions that people were asking that I didn't get to, throughout the webinar. I was like, if they're asking it, somebody else is going to be thinking it as well. So then I would, the next time, weave that answer into what I was saying during the webinar, so that hopefully I'm answering those questions before they get to the end of the webinar.
So good. And when you say tweaked your offer, I just want to clarify for people, you didn't change your product. Your product is a sleep console, people call, but it's the packaging. It's how are we messaging it? How are we packaging it up with bonuses? How are we pricing it? How are we positioning it? Like there's so many, like I just think in a lot of things that you've shared that so many people would have given up after the first webinar and said the webinar funnel doesn't work for me. I've heard it all. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my kind of business. It doesn't work for my price point. I'm not good at it. Like all the excuses. You didn't. Also, I think if your offer needs a little bit of tweaking and working to convert at the level you want, you could have very easily said, people don't want this. It's not good enough. It isn't right. I need to scrap it completely. I'm going to do a course instead of consults. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You didn't. You knew that your offer worked and you knew that your offer is solving a problem. It's just, okay, how do I now package it in a way that communicates this with people? And that's the real magic in all of this. It's, yes, knowing what to tweak is important, knowing the outline of the funnel, all of that's really important. And I don't want to discount that. But what's going to get you from having that knowledge to actually having success is what you've done, is being willing to test, being willing to implement, being like a lifelong learner. Like I'm constantly, I put something out there and it bombs. I'm like, wait, I thought I was past this stage. I thought I would get it. And then you realize, wait, no, I'm always learning and I'm growing and evolving with my ideal clients and the markets and all the things.
You really have to put your ego to one side.
You have to.
Because the natural instinct after those definitely the first one was crawl under a rock and don't come out.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like I was like, I came downstairs afterwards and I sat next to David and I was like, like that didn't feel great. But it was like brand new tech. I mean, it was the first time I'd been on Webinar Jam and I'm like, just figuring out where is the chat, where is my slides, where is the offer? Like, of course I'm not going to be as polished as when I'm watching your webinar and I'm like taking notes and trying to be like, okay, this is what she's doing, this is how she's doing. Of course I'm not going to be that. And actually, like, someone on your team who did a debrief with me was exactly like that. They were like, you're comparing yourself to someone that's been doing this for like years and years. Like, give yourself a break. And yeah, that's so true. And I think if I could give a tip, I would say, don't worry about getting many people to your first webinar. Use it as practice. And like have a couple under your belt, and then like after that, if you can get numbers in.
I honestly might even put this recording inside of FFT because that's one thing I didn't think to say was have less people to your first webinar, and I actually think that's really good advice. Go, should have said that, but yeah, I mean, listen, having that many people there is always great because you're really testing it in real time and you're getting that solid data. But like you said, none of us are going to be great the first time doing it, but there's so many people who, I started doing webinars, God, now was it 8 years ago? It's been a while, been doing it a while. And the first ones, I mean, it was terrible. Yeah. It didn't come naturally to me at all. And I was like, I don't understand how this is going to work, whatever. But at the same time, other people were starting to do it at the same time as me. And I saw them drop like flies because it wasn't working for them. And they went and chose a different kind of funnel or a different kind of marketing strategy. And for me, I just thought, you know what? It's not about a webinar. And we teach all different kinds of funnels in FFT. You always have a choice. But for me, it was never about a webinar's the absolute best way to do this, so I have to learn it. It was the webinar is one way of doing this. And regardless of which way I go, I have to pick one way and get good at it. So I might as well stick with this thing that I've tried and just try and make it work. And that's the thing. It's like, are you willing to stick with something and master it? Or are you just going to keep hopping from course to course to course, from challenge funnel to webinar funnel to freebie funnel to, all the different things? You're going to keep hopping from Instagram to X to TikTok to YouTube to podcast. Or are you going to say, you know what? Instagram isn't working for me right now, but it's going to be working for me 12 months from now. You know what? Webinars aren't working for me right now, but they're going to be working 6 months from now. Are you willing to do that? And I think that's exactly what you did. And that's exactly why you've had success with it.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm just getting started, but I think just getting that evidence of getting better at something that you're not naturally good at, that's a great feeling as well. Money aside is just like the feeling, because as adults, we're not learning new things all the time, right? We're not doing courses and then putting them into action all the time. So to have something where you can tangibly see you have got better between that date and that date, you have got better, and more people believe you and more people will buy from you, like that was also a really, really good feeling.
100%. And I also just think as well, in fact, I believe it. I don't just think it. I really believe that learning the skill of marketing is one of the most valuable skills you can have as an entrepreneur. And so it's like testing this is going to pay dividends 5 years from now.
Somebody commented in the last webinar, if like your career as a sleep consultant fails, then you've got a job in sales. And I was like, I don't need that energy around here, but thanks. Like, I'm definitely getting better at this.
But here's the thing though, because you were really good at marketing before you started your sleep business, and that skill transferred, and now you're getting even better at it, and that skill's going to transfer. No matter what we do as entrepreneurs, if we cannot sell, we don't have a business.
Yeah, I think like from my side, I feel like I'm really good at the marketing, but the sales, actually selling, like that, I feel like is something that I'm definitely still developing. But you're right, like the better you are at that, like the more your business is going to fly.
Totally. And you're going to feel so much more comfortable. I'm sure if you ever decided to create another offer, or you want to start scaling your lower ticket, you know how to do it. It's not like, oh, I really want to start this new thing, but how am I going to sell it, or how am I going to scale that? Like you said, there's levers you can pull. You know exactly what you're doing next time. And it's like, okay, I just follow, rinse and repeat. Whenever I launch a new product now, I'm like, okay, I know exactly how I'm going to sell it. I'm going to need to tweak and I'm going to need to test. It's not going to be perfect right out the gate, but I know that if I spend the time creating something, I can sell it. It's not going to be a waste of time.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. What would you say to someone that is sitting on the fence about joining FFT's next round?
I am somebody that like loves a tangible ROI. Like if I can, and that's hard sometimes with courses, you can't immediately see like I've paid $3,000, but it's brought me X amount of business. But literally within 3 months, I can see that the $3,000 I spent has translated to $20,000. Like I think the proof is there. But also, the course is to learn how to build a machine under your business that's going to generate you money predictably. You don't get that by doing no work. Like you have to also appreciate that, like if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. So the course is amazing. The content is, I mean, exactly what I needed to get my funnel off the ground, but I worked freaking hard. We were also moving house at the same time. So yeah, those two things together, like I did get a bit burnt out during the course because I was running around like a headless chicken. But I also was like, if I'm literally building, hopefully, something that is going to translate to being something of an ATM in my business, then it's not going to be done overnight with, giving it an hour here, an hour there. It's going to take quite a bit of work. And I was really willing to put that work in, and I trusted you. I was like, I've been listening to your podcast for, over a year. I have been consuming your content. I was like, this chick is my chick. She knows what she's doing. I trust her. I'm going to lean into everything that she's telling me to do, and I'm going to take action. And that's what I would say. If you're ready for that predictability in your business, and you want that something that you can rely on to generate income, to generate bookings business each month, like that, the course is for you.
I love it. Well, thank you for that. Pivoting slightly off of the FFT topic, let's talk about the beautiful harmony that is being a mother and a business owner. How are we doing with the harmony? We're going to call it harmony because balance is a pipe dream.
So my son is 4 years old now, and I feel like we have a really, really good balance. I said it. It's there in your future. It's
I'm
there.
here for it.
We do have a good balance now, but we rely heavily on childcare.
Right.
My son is in nursery Monday to Friday. He's starting school in September. And my husband does a lot in terms of like work in the house. So, you know, we're a good team. We're a really good kind of 50-50. If my work's busy, then he's there more on the childcare and the house side of things, and vice versa. But yeah, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without childcare. And also, I feel like I just wouldn't be the mum that I want to be without that. I need the time to pour into myself. I need that time to refill my cup, you know, to be able to work out, to be able to work on my business, to be able to see my friends. You know, I live in a house with a husband, a boy, and a boy dog. There's a lot of male energy there.
That's a lot of testosterone.
There's a lot of willies in my house. I need my girlfriends. So like I need that time away, and then I can come back and be that patient, loving, fun mum. You know, my hat is so off to parents that can do it full time without childcare. Like, how are you doing this? For me, I need the childcare, but we have got that balance now. And you know, when I was in the thick of it when he was younger, and I would say to other parents, like, tell me it gets easier, and they'd be like, you know, there's just new challenges once you get older. It's just new, and I'd be like, fucking hell, like, give me a break. It's bullshit. As they get older, for me, from 3 upwards, things just got easier. That definitely. And 4, I'm not saying it's a breeze, but it's a lot easier. When you can reason with them, suddenly it becomes a lot easier. But, you know, this was like part of what led me to start my podcast earlier this year, which is called Just You Wait, because anyone that's pregnant or that's had a baby, you will get a lot of the just you waits before you have a baby. You know, the just you wait, you're never going to sleep again, just you wait, like you and your husband are never going to have sex again, those kind of just you waits. And you know, I really wanted to like really have a podcast which was the antithesis of that you can still have a rich and full life, a beautiful life after babies. And yes, it's going to take some work. Thank you, therapy. And it's going to take, you know, some help in the form of childcare or in other forms, but it's still, you know, possible. And I wanted to really like show that to people and to demonstrate that for my son as well, that you can still have this rich, full life, you know, whatever stage of life you're at. Can I tell you a funny story about the podcast as well?
Yeah.
So I had never really had it on my heart to do a podcast. You know, I'd really thought about it from a business perspective, like, would this be like a really good feeder into my business? But it just hadn't like appealed to me that much. I actually thought doing a baby sleep podcast would get a bit boring, like a bit samey after a while. But I like around May time this year, I was lying in bed, like sleeping, and I just had this like dream / idea of like literally the voice, like, you should do a podcast with Liv, who was an influencer that I had collaborated with. I'd done a pregnancy consultation for her. You should do a podcast with Liv, and it should be like new mum, old mum. Like she's just about to have a baby. She's going through it in real time. You're the like old mum.
Old mum.
The experienced mom, who's kind of been through it and who's like a few years in, and like what a like interesting back and forth that would be, where like one of you's just got that perspective of like, oh, I went through that, or like that was tough for us, or like don't worry, you'll breeze it. Anyway, like I didn't really know this this influencer, Liv Humby. I didn't really know her very well. We'd worked together. I thought we'd definitely got I got a good vibe, and we'd had a couple of DMs. So I was like, that's weird. Anyway, like the next night, I woke up at 5 a.m. Exact same thought, like, you should do a podcast with Liv. And so I was like, this is really weird. Like, it was such a clear idea as well. And so I sent her a DM, and I was like, this is going to sound really weird, but I keep waking up in the night with this idea for a podcast. Have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And she wrote back like straight away. And she was like, it's been on my vision board for 2 years, and I'm looking at it right now. There's a photo with 2 microphones, and I never knew who the other microphone belonged to. And she's like, yes, let's tell me everything. What are you thinking? And within 10 days of that conversation, we recorded our first episode. And the first episode is like the day we met, like 1 hour after meeting, we were mic'd up.
You shot your shot. I love that though. I love for just putting it out there, like not being afraid of that rejection. Yeah. Or being like, you know what, even if she says no, like I can handle it. But it's why not? Gonna
kill me yet.
Yeah, why not put yourself out there? Yeah. I love that.
It just it really has taught me this year to like trust my intuition so much. Like it's given me like confidence and almost like proof in my own intuition, because it was so weird, that it was just like you in a dream almost. And
I always wonder, where does it come from?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I've ever really had one like that. But yeah, the podcast launched in June, and actually when it launched, I was in Greece on holiday, and within 2 days it was #1 on the parenting chart, and I was like floating around Greece like, what is this life? What is going on? It was just like so cool. And like it has been just like the easiest, funnest project. And yeah, just like the whole goal of it is to really just show people that you can still, show parents that you can still live a good life. You can still have a good relationship with your partner. You can still look after yourself mentally and physically. And I think like that's really like what I want my business to be about. Yes, we're about the good sleep, but we're more about the good life that the good sleep brings.
I love that so much. So it's called Just You Wait.
Just You Wait.
Search for it on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen. And where can everyone find you? And then what's your site if they want to go book a consult for their babies?
So thesleepchief.com/BossBabe.
Okay.
For anyone that wants to sign up for the next webinar, whether that is if you're a mama who is so ready for that good sleep, or if you are just an entrepreneur wanting to see a funnel in action.
Just a little lurker, you want to see how the funnel goes.
Yeah, a funnel hacker, just come on over, and you can register there for the next webinar, thesleepchief.com, for anyone that wants a consultation. And come say hi on Instagram. I'm Sleep Chief UK.
Amazing. Well, this was incredible. Everyone should go do that, whether you are looking to book a consult or not. Go and deconstruct the funnel that's freaking working and has generated 20K. Like, isn't that mind-blowing?
Yeah.
Wild.
Already,
yeah. We need to have you back on in a year and hear where your business and podcast is. Amazing. I'm excited. Well, thank you for being here. This was amazing.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.